Dr. Verny. So, in your blog post, you talk about how loneliness can really affect someone's health from their brain health to their heart to their gut to just psychological effects and so on. So, can you just tell us the different health problems that people can really go through if they are experiencing real loneliness?
Well, as you have said, loneliness is really just not in your head. It affects your whole body. Every part of your body is affected by loneliness. It comes with an increased rate of depression, of course. People start worrying. Loneliness is also seen as somewhat of like a social bankruptcy, like somehow you have the feeling that you have failed in terms of making friends, and that suddenly you realize that you have no friends and you're alone in the world, and you feel guilty. So that then produces all kinds of effects on your body, as I've said. For example, a few years ago, the Surgeon General of the United States said that loneliness is a real diagnostic scourge because it's as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day
Mhm.
and as bad as obesity. And that was just a few years ago. I think it was 2 years ago that the Surgeon General of the United States said that. Excuse me.
No
Uh,
problem.
in England, they actually have a minister of loneliness because they have come to the realization that loneliness is a real disease. And you mentioned heart disease. Anybody who has got heart disease and they are lonely will have an increased risk of having more heart problems. They may have strokes. Their immune system goes down because loneliness produces stress. And so
Mm.
all the effects that we know um, have on our bodies will come with loneliness. So the whole immune system is not as effective as it was before, and so you're more likely to pick up diseases, infections, inflammations, and all that comes with it. So, like I've said, um, the loneliness is really both personal and social because the more people get sick, of course, the more society suffers, the more our medical system is called upon to treat these people, and things just escalate.
Got it. Yeah. So that's something that's really important because people don't really connect loneliness with it having a physical toll on your body, right? And
Exactly.
obviously, if you've actually been through loneliness, you know how it actually feels. It's like a really heavy feeling, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, you mentioned it's worse than like 15 cigarettes a
Yes.
day,
Yes.
and being obese and so on and so forth. Now we talked about the heart here,
Yes.
but can you quickly explain the um problems it has with a person's brain? Like, how does it hurt a person's brain in terms of like physiological sense?
Yeah, I understand your question. Yes. Um, Well, what it does is that as you produce more and more stress hormones, so this is adrenaline and noradrenaline, uh,
Hmm.
your sympathetic system gets turned on more and more, and your parasympathetic system, which is your relaxation and restoration system, whereas your sympathetic system is fight and flight systems. So then you get more and more into a state of fight and flight, which for a short duration is very good if in fact you're fleeing or fighting.
Yeah.
But when you're not fleeing and you're not fighting, what it does is that it interferes with your neural circuits. And so what you have is that these stress hormones accumulate in the brain and they start interrupting brain circuits. So they no longer function as efficiently as they did originally. Also, a lot of brain cells start dying as an effect of the toxicity of the adrenaline and noradrenaline. And so you will have cognitive decline.
Okay. Yeah, that's also really important because when your brain circuits are compromised, you slowly lose the ability to really use your brain in a swift way, right? You'll have like brain fog, you'll forget a lot of things. Now, is there a certain length of time that it takes for a person to really start going through these effects, or is it kind of like immediate?
It's not immediate, like all these things, they take a while. I don't think that anyone has determined the exact time that it takes from the moment that you start feeling stressed to the point where you have actually decline physiologically in all your systems, the brain, the heart, the rest. But it will take time, and it will also depend on the kind of shape your body is in. If you are
Mm.
young and if you are in pretty good shape, obviously, you will be more resistant to stress than a person who already perhaps is in declining health to start with. So, people who have compromised health or who are older will definitely be affected more quickly and more rapidly and more deeply than people who are young and in good shape.
Yeah. Okay. And then also, I guess when you're younger and then if you're fit, you tend to have more neuroplasticity, right? So you can rebound quickly if you did go through that damage. And that's probably why COVID was really, really bad for seniors because it's hard to rebound from that, right?
Yeah. By the way,
Yeah.
Shaq, I absolutely hate the term neuroplasticity.
Is that right? Why
Yeah.
is that?
Why is that? Because just think for a moment, what are plastics? I mean, if I
Oh
hold
my
up
God.
something that is plastic, it
Yeah.
is definitely not living, right? It's dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Plastics are dead materials. Neurons are not dead, they are living.
Mm-hmm.
So to refer to neurons as plastic is
Yeah.
ridiculous. It is
Uh-huh.
totally illogical. But this is not
Yeah.
your fault. I'm not being critical of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every neuroscientist uses that term without thinking it through, without realizing that it is totally illogical.
Mm.
What we should say is that neurons are very responsive to the environment and that they will change according to the requirements of the environment. But to call it neuroplasticity is totally illogical.
Oh, okay, so like you don't like the word neuroplasticity, right? So like, do you believe that the brain can change though after it's
Absolutely,
okay? So,
absolutely, absolutely. Every cell,
hmm,
every
yeah,
cell has got an incredible ability to respond to the environment. That is what is so mysterious and magical
mm,
about our bodies. Yes, and that is why we need to take care of our bodies, both socially, like in terms of relationships, loneliness, and also physically, of course. We need proper nutrition, we need sun, we need water. I mean, all these things. We have to take care of our bodies in every way, socially, physiologically, etc.
oh, okay, great, yeah. So it seems like it just comes down to the neurons changing based on
Yes.
the current environment that you're in and just how you're living, right? But you don't like to call it neuroplasticity because it's plastics and so on and so forth.
Yeah, yeah. Let me
Yeah.
just make it clear. It's not that I don't like it. It just doesn't
Mm,
make sense. It's not logical.
okay. Got it.
Okay.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No problem. No problem.
All right.
Okay, that's great. Now, in regards to the gut health,
Yes.
how does it affect someone's gut?
Well, that is a really interesting area of studies that have become more and more popular over the last decade. What we have seen is that the gut microbiome, so these are all the bacteria and viruses that live in our gut, which is about 5 kilograms, by the way. Like
Hmm.
it's a huge amount that most people don't realize. And most of these bacteria are very important because they really help us to stay healthy. And the important thing about our microbiome is that it must have diversity. In other words, you need to eat foods of all kinds. And unfortunately, what happens with people as they age, or a lot of young people, is that they eat very unhealthy foods, usually only of one kind. So young people eat a lot of fried food, very few vegetables,
Mhm.
very few fruits. So what you have is a lack of diversity. And when you have a lack of diversity, you have a lack of diversity in your microbiome. And research has shown that when that happens, when you don't have diversity, your health declines. And interestingly enough, there are several research studies which show that actually you decline in wisdom. Now, I don't know how this particular study measured wisdom, but that's what they came out with. And, I referenced that in my article.
Yeah.
But so not only is it a decline in wisdom, but also a decline in health. So, one of the most important things when it comes to good health is to have a diverse diet.
Okay, and then you're saying loneliness can really affect that.
Well, yeah, because when I mean, just think of people who are lonely. They don't go out very much. They don't go shopping.
Got it.
Uh, if they are lonely, it means that it's just one individual. So I mean, even I'm sure in your own experience, when you are by yourself, the evening comes along, you do something that is simple, like you are not going to cook up some kind of a three-course
Mm.
complicated dinner, right?
Yeah.
And some of the senior citizens will very often just have, something very simple like toast, perhaps toast and cheese or something of that nature. Or they may have breakfast cereal with milk for dinner. Now, obviously, this is not nutritious, and the more they indulge in that kind of a diet, the less divergent their bacteria are going to be in their gut, which then predisposes to more depression and more ill health. So it becomes a
Mm.
self perpetuating cycle, a downward spiral.
Yeah, so it's like a domino effect. Feeling lonely leads to other things. People just don't have the motivation to go out there and eat in a healthy way because they don't feel good, right? So what's the point of trying to do other things? And yeah, and that's probably where like binge eating comes from as well, right?
Yes.
You just sit there and just keep eating a bunch of
Oh,
foods
chocolate.
that are not nutritious.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. Sweet things or salty things.
Yeah. Now it's also really interesting. You mentioned lack of wisdom,
Yes.
right? So yeah, people in general, they think that when you spend time in solitude, you become more wise because you can really like self-reflect and actually use your mind and think, right? But in your article you mentioned that there was that study that said when you're more social, you're wiser. And
Yes.
obviously, maybe in that study like they didn't really tell you how they measured wisdom, but like do you have a hypothesis on why someone might be
Yes.
wiser by being social instead of being
Yes.
more in solitude?
Yes. Yes. I think that when you are in conversations with people, as we are right now, for example, then you are challenged with new ideas, with new questions. It makes your brain work, right?
Yeah.
And as my brain is working and attempting to answer your questions, I'm learning about you, I'm learning about myself, I'm learning about the subject that we are discussing. So, obviously, it leads to more knowledge and hopefully more wisdom. Knowledge is not always wisdom, but as we progress in life and interact with other people, um, we become intellectually challenged and we think more clearly, and that way we become wiser. So when that is lacking, when a person is just sitting at home, or when they are just on Facebook or similar social interactions on the internet, they're not really challenged. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at, when you look at the kinds of messages that people put on Facebook, uh, they are really
Yeah,
superficial and,
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of,
yeah. Twitter, same thing.
yeah,
Instagram, all of it. Yeah.
I went shopping today. Like, who gives a damn?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Okay, yeah. So pretty much what you're saying is like, if you do socialize more, you're pretty much using your brain to really learn about different people, and that equals more experiences. And in general, wisdom comes from experiences, right?
Right.
So
Let me just say that your picture has disappeared.
my picture has disappeared.
Yes. It says picture in picture mode closed to maintain recording quality.
So I think it should be okay though, because I can see it on my side.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. It's fine because it says that it's uploaded on my side, so it's all good. It's still going though,
Okay.
so it's all good. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. Now this is really interesting. So how would someone balance being in solitude and socializing? Because both of them, can really help a person, right? Because if you
Yeah.
socialize too much, then you don't really have much time to actually, sit down and actually try and process what
Sure.
you just learned, right? So
Yeah.
how do you balance that? How do you balance socializing and being in solitude?
Well, I think, balance is important,
Yeah.
but different people have different requirements for solitude. What we should avoid is um, have no solitude. Like I know people who cannot stand silence and being by themselves for more than a few minutes. They have to turn
Mm.
on the radio, they have to turn on the television set, they have to turn some music on. They just cannot really sit down and read, perhaps, or just do some yoga or meditation. This is just something that they totally, totally avoid.
Yeah.
Um, and it may be because nobody has ever told them that this is good, I mean, there are a lot of people who have never heard of yoga or meditation. There
Hmm.
are a lot of people who grew up in families where there was constant chaos, screaming and yelling. And so that's what they are used to. Interestingly enough, people like that uh, do not like silence. They have become habituated to noise.
Yeah.
And without noise, they feel lost. So a program like yours, could do people a lot of good if it woke them up to the possibility that being by yourself once in a while is really a very good thing.
Hmm.
But I
So
don't know, to answer completely your question, I'm sorry.
yeah, it's
Um,
fine.
to completely answer your question, like I said, it depends on your own personality. Some people are more introspective, some people are more social, more outgoing. Um, so, depending on your personality type, you might require less alone time than somebody else, but some alone time is really, really important.
Yeah. Okay, so it just seems like it comes down to, who you are as a person, what your natural tendencies are, and just using your like intuition to just really figure out, okay, what works for you, what's too much and what's not too much, and just kind of, I guess it comes down to trial and like error, right? And you kind of figure it out from there.
That's right.
Got it.
Depending whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you will need more or less social contact depending who you are. But like you
Hmm.
beautifully put it, it you just have to discover it on your own.
Got it. Okay, that's fantastic. Now, Dr. Verny, I just want to quickly go back to the 15 cigarettes and like obesity
Okay.
section, because you started your post by saying that, being in isolation can shorten one's life, right?
Yes.
Now, obviously, smoking 15 cigarettes a day and being obese is something that we all know can really, really take years off your life. Now, has there been a study to kind of tell us how many years off of someone's life being lonely can take, or is that just, like in its beginning stages?
I don't know whether anybody has done such accurate studies.
Mm,
Um, I have not come across any that would answer that question uh,
yeah.
in detail. I think it's just kind of a generalization, and 15 cigarettes is really not that bad. I mean, there's
Really?
really. I mean, there are some people. I mean, what I
Yeah.
mean is that there are some people who smoke a lot more. You know, like
Yeah.
25 and 30 cigarettes a day. And
Well.
when you look at old movies,
Mm-hmm.
you will see everybody constantly smoking. Just watch a movie from the 40s or 50s, and
Yeah.
everybody is smoking constantly. So
Yeah.
thank goodness, we have made a lot of progress in that respect. We are smoking
Yeah.
less. But one of the other problems that we have, of course, is now we have plastics, microplastics,
Yeah.
and they are now everywhere. They are in your body,
Yeah.
they are in your food, and they are a big health hazard. And there is very little we can do about it because everything that we eat already contains microplastics. So that's another danger that's looming.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, so it seems like I guess 15 cigarettes in general is not as bad compared to, the
25 or
extremes of the
30.
past and so on and so
Right.
forth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's bad. I mean, obviously, one cigarette is bad
Yeah, for sure.
for sure. So we should definitely avoid that, and we should avoid
Mhm.
obesity. But like I said, loneliness is in itself also a hazard.
Mhm. Great. Okay, Dr. Verny, that is a really good overview on the health issues that come with being lonely, right? So
Right.
let's just quickly, like make a turn and talk about the situations that lead to people, going through loneliness.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to feel like that, right? But it's just because oftentimes they find themselves in a place where they're like, wow, I'm lonely, and they don't really know what to do. And this tends to be a problem, especially as you get older, because when you're younger, you're you're in social situations where you're kind of almost forced to make friends and be social, right? But that tends to
Absolutely.
go away as you get older. So
Absolutely.
can we go through the different situations that lead to this, just so people
Well,
know?
sure. Yes. Yes. Well, as you get older, of course, a variety of diseases, come upon you, and you develop arthritis. So you have mobility issues. Uh, Thousands of people, need to have knee surgery or hip surgery because of arthritis, particularly in a nation like Canada, which has a long winter and a lot of seasons when it rains a lot, which is all kind of bad for arthritis. Also, people who play um, contact sports like hockey and football receive many injuries while they are playing. Of course, being young, they hardly notice it, but it catches up with you when you start reaching your 50s and 60s.
Mm.
So, early injuries plus the weather um, combine to produce a lot of arthritis with many, many, many people. And as you get arthritis, you become less mobile. And also, as you get older, many marriages break down.
Yeah.
Sometimes partners, of course, pass away. So loneliness becomes more and more of a problem. And then there are other diseases like heart disease and strokes, uh, which diabetes, all of these common diseases become more and more pronounced as you age. And so the chances of becoming gradually more isolated increase with age.
Mhm.
And so when that and so as you age in your 50s, 60s, and 70s, uh, also your children very often uh, move. They are no longer living with you, so you lose family contacts, and your friends begin to die or move
Mm.
away, or you just lose them because you no longer share the same interests. So all of these things contribute to older people becoming gradually more and more isolated. So social isolation then leads to loneliness.
God, yeah. So it seems like, this is specifically for people that are, slowly aging, right? You
Yes.
tend to
Yes.
really go through certain like diseases that kind of keep you away from being able to go out and socialize the way you used to. Spouse's death, children moving, friends dying, and so on and so forth. Great. Now, what are different situations that lead to young people feeling lonely? Because this is a huge problem, like in the younger generations, right? So,
It's a huge
yeah.
problem. Yes. It's a huge problem because young people spend incredible amounts of time on their computers, on their screens. And there was research done in Canada just recently which showed that young people, um, in general, one third of young people spend 5 hours or more on their screens, which is a
Mm,
ridiculously long time. I mean, if they spend 5 hours a day
yeah.
studying, they would
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
brilliantly in school, right?
Hmm.
Um, I really wish that they would have done a study which compared how much time these same students spend on their studies as compared to the time that they spend on their computers,
Yeah.
uh, interacting with their friends. And interestingly, girls spend more time than boys
Yeah.
on their computers. Uh, and we can see in terms of statistics that young women, girls, um, have a much higher rate of self harm than boys and a higher rate of hospitalization than boys. And much of that is due to the time that they spend on their computers. Excuse me.
No problem.
Yeah. So, again, this is very unhealthy. And during COVID and after COVID, studies have shown that young people suffered a lot from being separated from their friends. And being on the computer and talking to them cannot substitute for face to face interactions.
Okay. Yeah. So is social media and like screen time the main reason, or are there like, different like other situations that can lead to it as well? Because obviously, social media is definitely a huge problem, and like there are like lots of books written on this issue as well, right? But is there anything else, like aside from social media, or is that like the main problem for the younger people?
Well, I don't know whether it's the main problem because obviously there are other problems. I mean, not going to school, for example,
Hmm.
not having that walk or that trip to the school, not meeting real people in real time. All of these things create problems that are hard to measure, but obviously, there are problems that need to be further studied. Um, I think another problem, particularly with young women and girls in students in schools, is that very often there's a certain degree of ostracism that occurs. There's the in
Yeah.
group and the out group, and this is more prevalent with young women and girls in schools than with men. With men, hostility usually takes sort of a more physical, like they might get into fights,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have the same kind of ostracism that girls indulge in. And that can be devastating for the person who is sort of excluded from the group. And so that would lead to real trauma, like real emotional trauma, depression, even suicides have been reported. So the, this is another problem that students tend to form groups and and kind of a social exclusion then leads to problems.
Yeah, yeah, that's really true. Like social ostracism is pretty big among young people because
Yeah.
obviously tend to be quite naive and like not that mature yet. So, and obviously it's more of a common thing with girls because guys tend to, if they have a problem, it's
Yes.
more violent.
Right.
It's not good, obviously,
No.
but girls, it's more about like spreading rumors and
Yes.
all these different things to kind of break a person down psychologically, right? So
I, yeah.
yeah.
By
Hmm.
the way, interestingly enough, the same thing. Well, a similar thing happens uh, with older people when they enter one of those buildings, one of those old age homes. There's a better term for them.
You mean
Retirement, like retirement communities, where single people or couples kind of live, but it's a retirement house or building or community. And I have heard, I haven't read any studies on this, but I have personally, visited some of these older folks, and they all complain about there being these little groupings
mm,
of in people and out people. And everybody tries to get sort of into the in group, and very often they are excluded, and then they feel unwanted and unliked, and it leads to depression on their part. So, in some ways, older people sort of replicate
wow.
what happened to them when they were in high school.
Now, why is that though? Because in high school, it's I guess kind of based on what's cool and what's not, right?
Right.
Is that the same thing with
Yes.
people that are older?
Yes.
Really? That's so interesting. Yeah.
It's basically the same thing. Human nature, unfortunately, does not change in that respect anyway.
Wow.
So it's, replaying the high school all over again. And,
Hmm.
a lot of it has to do with self esteem. Um, when you are in the in group, you feel that you're important um, and respected, not necessarily liked, but respected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it
Yeah.
makes you feel better about yourself. When you're in the out group, it makes you feel worse about yourself.
Hmm. Now, like, will it be the same thing with high school? Like, because in high school, girls tend to do this more, right? Is it
Yeah.
the same thing when you're older, or is wow? So it's like a complete carbon copy, just I guess as you age.
Well, that is a very good question, and I'm not aware of any research that has been done on this. Perhaps it has, and I'm not aware of it.
Yeah,
I definitely would look into that.
that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Well, first of all, you have more older women than men in many of these retirement communities, okay? Because men die at a younger age than women. So in our society, I think the most recent statistics would be that women live about 7 years longer than men on the average.
Really.
So yeah, so right from the beginning, right after birth, men have a higher incidence of illness and death than women, and that continues all along your life. So it's one of the reasons that men often marry, women who are younger than they are. So no, that's not the reason that they marry women.
Yeah, there are other reasons as
No,
well.
there are
Yeah.
other reasons. Yeah. But
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that as a result of that, and men dying 7 years younger, 7 years
Mm,
earlier than women. So let's say that you have an 80-year-old man who is married to a 73-year-old woman. Obviously, he is going to die before her.
mm.
So in many of these retirement homes, like there's a huge, but there might be like, 80% of women and 20% of men. So what you see among the women in terms of these groupings in and out is much more prevalent and much more obvious, much more apparent than among the men.
Got it. Now, like, when you say 7 years, is that like in certain parts of the world, or is that just like the total for the planet in general? I know
I,
it's like
I,
Western, African. I'm just
I think it's in North America.
okay.
It
North.
may be in the rest of the world, but as far as I know, it's United States and Canada,
Okay. Okay.
and
Cool. No
probably
problem.
Western Europe too.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know the rest of the world. I don't know.
Okay. Great. Now, going back to the idea of phone calls
Yes,
not being enough to keep in touch, right?
right.
Now, will it be the same thing for stuff like FaceTime and Zoom, or is that still not staying in touch?
Well, FaceTime and Zoom obviously is much better than
Yeah.
telephone. At least, you can watch people. But for example, I'm a member of the ORB, the Ontario Review Board,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a government agency that deals with people who have been convicted of a crime, but on account of having been diagnosed of suffering of a mental disorder at the time that they committed the crime, instead of going to jail, they're going into the forensic system. So they're being treated like patients.
Mm.
So we have quite a number of forensic hospitals all across Ontario, and people like myself um, who belong to the ORB visit these institutions regularly to make sure that these patients are properly treated and are actually recovering. And so, uh, what we have done during COVID and very soon after COVID was that we would have these meetings on Zoom instead of in person. And everybody on the board, like my colleagues and I, we all agreed that the experience, although pretty good, was not the same as actually sitting in a room with the patient and their counsel and having a session to see whether they're getting better, how they are coming along. Uh, Not only an understanding but a feeling for what is going on, and that is what is missing in a Zoom call or a similar kind of an arrangement. So we all agreed, and and I certainly agree that it's not the same, and that face to face is definitely more meaningful, and it communicates much more than what you can see on a screen.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with that because we all went through COVID, right? So like
Yeah,
no one likes these Zoom. It's just hard. It's just different, right?
yeah,
Now phone calls obviously make sense because you can't see the person's face, right? You
right,
just hear their voice on a
right.
on your phone.
Yeah.
Now, so why do humans feel that need to be close to a person's like physical body? Because that's the only thing that's changing. Because like even over here, I can see your face, you can see mine, and we're still talking. But obviously, it won't be the same as
Right.
having this conversation in
No,
person, right?
yeah.
So like, why do we have that need to be close to a person's body to feel like we're socially integrated?
Well, as usual, you have some very good questions.
Thank you.
You have. Um, I think, and a lot of research. This is based not only on my own feelings and experiences, but a lot of research uh, that all living beings, including animals, and I don't know how low we go in terms of the evolutionary tree, but we certainly know that all animals, whether it is dogs, cats, sheep, horses, all monkeys, of course,
Yeah.
all higher animals, including humans, seem to have a need for touch, for um, closeness to other beings. And all you have to do, is watch someone who owns a pet and watch them stroke the dog
Yeah.
or the cat.
Yeah.
And, they like a cat will just sort of lie down on its back and almost communicate to you, yeah, 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 stroke me, yeah, do this a little more, yeah, I
Yeah.
love it, I love it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it's the same with people, like when you're close to someone, you just want to hug them, right? So, hug them, kiss them, be close. I think it's in our DNA. There is
Mm.
a real need for closeness. And when we don't get that, we suffer. Um, and we suffer physiologically and we suffer emotionally. And the two, of course, go hand in hand, uh, which a lot of people don't really understand. Like they make this distinction between like physical contact and social contact of having the other
Hmm.
person be interested in you, right? Um, Having a meaningful conversation. Much of this is not really measurable, yet it
Yeah.
is. Yet it is very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's definitely a good point because like this is why if you put these animals in zoos and just keep them all by themselves, they'll lose their mind, right? Especially social animals specifically. If it's a
Exactly.
fish, okay, I guess it
No.
can stay. I'm not sure about fish, but like it seems like they can stay alone, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, for us,
Yeah.
monkeys,
Yeah.
lions, tigers, like just social animals,
Yeah.
it's just a like an intrinsic need.
Yes. It's an
Got it.
intrinsic need. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so, that has to be satisfied. And when it is not satisfied, it's like being hungry, right? Like you just get hungrier and hungrier and you lose
Yeah.
weight and gradually you die if you don't eat. And it's the same thing with touch. I mean, people who are not touched really, really suffer. They don't
Yeah.
realize it. They don't realize very often what is happening. But
Hmm.
what is important for us to understand is that being touched is just as important as sunshine or good food.
Yes. Yes. That's very true. Like you'll feel it if you haven't,
Yeah,
like let's say you hugged someone in a while,
yeah,
and then you finally hug someone after 5 years. You'll be like, wow, what a like new experience, right?
right, right. Very
Yeah.
true. Yes,
Now you also mentioned that you can't measure meaningful conversations,
right.
right? So let's just talk about social connections.
Okay.
Now, obviously, in this day and age, we like we live in the world of followers and Facebook friends and so on and so forth, right? But obviously, those aren't really social connections. It's
No,
just there.
no.
So like if people want to really avoid feeling lonely, how many social connections does like a person actually need, and what counts as a real social connection?
Well, the first question is easy to answer. We don't know how many you need.
Okay.
What is more important is how many do you have that are really meaningful, and how many are enough for you? Because there might be people who, like we said a few minutes ago, depending whether you're introverted or extroverted, um, some people who are extroverted will need more friends than people who are introverted. So a
Yeah.
person who does not really require a lot of social stimulation may be happy with two or three good friends. A person
Mm,
who is more extroverted may need double the number of those, six or seven friends. Um, I don't think that you can really have a whole bunch of good friends. And what do I mean by good friends? Um, I mean friends who are not there for utilitarian purposes. In other words, if you can, let's say that someone gives you a lift every day to your workplace, right? And one week he gives you a lift, and next week you reciprocate by giving him a lift. And you talk in the car and you have a pleasant conversation, but you never ever have anything else to do with that particular person outside of the car, right?
yeah.
Okay, that's not a friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. Just an acquaintance.
That's an acquaintanceship. That's a
Yeah.
utilitarian. In other words, it serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Or you may have a friend with whom you play tennis, once a week. But again, it's fairly restricted to the time that you play tennis and that you call him or her to make an appointment for tennis. But again, it's utilitarian, or you partake in the same pleasure, which is tennis or baseball or whatever. A true friend is something totally different. A true friend is a person with whom you can really be yourself and you feel accepted, and you can say things that will stay confidential, um, and you can disagree and navigate
Yeah.
those disagreements and not worry that it's somehow going to torpedo the friendship. So it has to be consistent, it has to be ongoing, it has to be trusting and meaningful.
Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah, that is really important. Yeah, pretty much, a real friend comes down to someone you could just truly be yourself with, and they, fully accept you. And also, both people should be able to share pain
Yeah.
and secrets without feeling like, okay, this person is going to go tell someone else. Having that trust is extremely important, and this is also really important. Being able to not agree on things
Yes.
and still maintain the friendship, which is you know, especially nowadays, like over the past 10 years, we've had this issue, right? People have a hard time maintaining friendships if they don't agree on topics that might be quite
Right.
heated, like politics and so on and so
Right.
forth.
Right.
And okay, yeah, so
Right.
that's really important.
Yeah. You said secrets. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
that's really important. So being honest is important in terms of friendships,
yeah,
and also having the sense of security that if you tell your friend that perhaps he or she said something that hurt your feelings, you don't keep it to yourself, but you
yeah.
actually express it. So, not sort of collect resentments, but it's very important to actually speak about that.
Got it. Great. And then yeah, like when it comes down to how many social connections a person actually needs, again, that's going to be really like dependent on who you are as a person. Some people need a bit more. Some people can do it like two or three.
Right.
And again, it just comes down to who you are.
Right.
Great. Okay, so now we only have a few minutes left, sadly, but yeah. So we've been talking about all these different things when it comes down to loneliness. So let's talk about like real solutions now.
Okay.
So if a people, so like if a person is feeling lonely, right? What are the most effective things that they can do to get out of that rut? Like, how does a person actually get back into the world and start being social? Because many people want to, but they don't really know how to actually do that.
Well, um, the first thing you have to do is recognize that you are lonely. And after that, to to be able to say to yourself, this may not be easy, this may take some work, this may take some effort, but I'm doing this for myself. Like, I'm not doing it because my daughter or son told me to do it, or because Dr. Verny told me to do it,
Mm,
but because I want to do it. It has to come from inside of you. That's important. So you're not doing it for anybody else, but you're doing it for you. And so recognizing the need to do it, and then having enough willingness, and bravery and courage, in a sense, because if you have been by yourself for a while, you hesitate. You hesitate going out, and you have all kinds of sort of expectations that people will reject you or not like you. So put that aside and make up your mind. And once you do that, there are a million different possibilities. Certainly, you can do volunteering. Like, there are always organizations
yeah.
which will welcome you with open arms. Like, there's nothing to worry about. There is the Red Cross. There are all kinds of church groups that want people to come and help them distribute food. And speaking of food, of course, there are food banks. Uh, the, there are hospitals that are looking for volunteers to help them out. They're just all you have to do is just look around your community. Um, you can Google for which organizations are looking for volunteers and volunteer once a week or twice a week, perhaps to different organizations. So that is a wonderful way of contributing to your community and at the same time getting out of loneliness and perhaps making new friends or at least acquaintances. Once you make an acquaintance can lead to friendship. So, in terms of that particular area, how to make friends, that's a whole other issue. Perhaps we can talk about that some other time.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we will.
yeah, but the point, the important point is that volunteering is one way of getting out of your loneliness. Another way is joining a club. And there are millions of clubs, of course. There are bridge clubs, there are chess clubs. God knows how many different clubs
Yeah.
there are that you can easily join in person. And then, of course, on the internet, like there are millions of things that you can join. Like I don't know whether it was in my article in Psychology Today because I wrote a much longer article for the Globe and Mail,
Mm.
which was about 600 words longer than the one that is in Psychology Today, because Psychology Today limits me to about 850 to 900 words,
Oh,
whereas
really? Mm.
Globe and Mail is up to 1600 words, so I can write more in the
Yeah,
Globe
yeah,
and
yeah,
Mail.
yeah.
But I may have mentioned in the Psychology Today blog, which you read, about one of my friends, for example, belonging to the Richard III club on the internet. And
Mm.
there are millions and millions of interest clubs on the internet. There are philosophy clubs, there are political clubs, there are all kinds of religious clubs, of course. Uh, just whatever you are interested in, all you have to do is Google uh, and put in your interest, and 1,000 answers will appear. So there is no lack of that. And then, of course, you can also join like a sports club if you
Yeah.
feel, that you could, like what's the name of that new ball game, which is like tennis? Pickleball.
Squash?
Pick,
Oh, pickleball.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of older people are playing pickleball quite well. Or you can go skating by yourself or with a friend. I mean, there are all kinds of activities that you can do, which are outdoors or indoors and good for your body. So, there are many different ways. The important thing is to start, to get going. It always sort of reminds me of, like, I hate cold water, and and
Yeah.
when I go visiting some of my friends who have pools, they jump into the pool. I put my feet into it, and I say, "Ah, it's
It's
cold."
cold.
And they say,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's wonderful. Just jump in, jump
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it's really great when you're in it." I hate that.
Yeah, yeah,
But they are
yeah.
right. They are right. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing in terms of getting out into the world for a person who perhaps, has withdrawn from the world. You just have to
That's a
jump
good
in.
analogy. Yeah.
You just have to make up your mind, and it's gonna perhaps hurt for a few seconds, and then you're okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So it seems like it really comes down to, hobbies, joining clubs, and obviously using like the internet. You can meet a lot of people who share certain like commonalities with you,
Yeah,
right? And then from there you can really build friendships. And obviously like saying hi in coffee shops and like
yeah,
like meeting people there, that's a pretty common place
yes,
too. Now the thing about volunteering, it's really interesting because many people don't talk about that because they always say stuff like, oh, just go join a club and hobby and so on and so forth. But volunteering is probably really helpful because you feel like you're helping people, and then you are like you're
You
helping
are.
people,
You
right?
are.
And then you feel useful.
Yes.
And when you're lonely, you don't feel like you're useful, to anyone, right?
You
So that probably creates a much deeper connection, which feels more meaningful.
more
um
meaningful. That's right.
yeah,
And it provides a purpose to your life. I know that
exactly.
I know next week, every Thursday, I go to the food bank, or I go,
Hmm.
to the Red Cross or something like that, or I'm driving someone for an appointment to their doctor. I mean, that,
Yeah.
gives life meaning, and also it sort of uh, tells you that you have something important to do next week. So it fills up your calendar slowly. Thursday, perhaps I will work for the Red Cross. And Tuesday, I might play bridge. And
Yeah.
Friday, I may have coffee with a friend. And so the whole week becomes fuller, and your life
Yes.
becomes fuller and more meaningful.
Yes, yes, that is really, really important. Now, I'm just going to ask you one more question, and then
Okay.
we'll be, like on
Yeah.
our way. Now, are there any like non-socialization techniques that people can use to make sure that they don't really go through the harmful effects of being lonely? Because, like, for example, if you're in social confinement and so on and so forth, and you just don't have that ability to socialize, is there anything that people can do just to make sure that they don't experience the bad health effects that come with being lonely?
Uh, well, you can always ask other. I mean, if you're totally incapable of leaving your room, or at least leaving the building that you are in, whether
Yeah.
perhaps you're hospitalized or whether you are in an old folks' home or something like that, well, ask other people to come and visit you. And what is also very, very important, and studies have shown this to be very beneficial, is when people bring in pets, like
Okay. There we go.
bringing in a
Yeah. Mhm.
dog or a cat with you, so that you get the opportunity to touch, which we talked about before.
Yeah.
You get the opportunity to stroke a cat or to stroke a dog. This would be very important too. So if you can't get
Hmm.
out, try to invite people with their pets to come and visit you.
Got it. Okay. Okay. That's also something that people can keep in mind. Pets are
Yes,
known for that, right? Being able to help with loneliness if you don't have much human
exactly.
connection. Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay, Dr. Verny, this was a really, really fun episode. Like, thank you so much for all this information. If people want to find your work and really look into, like what you do, where can they go?
Well, they can go to my website, trvernymd.com, and you will find all the information there. They can also find me in psychology blogs. If they just, again, look for Thomas R. Verny, MD, blogs on Psychology Today. I have something like 57 blogs there.
Hmm.
So lots of information there. And then, of course, if they go to Amazon.com, they will find my books, my most recent one, The Embodied Mind, and 7 or 8 other books that are on Amazon.
Got it. Okay, we will link all of that so people can go and really check it out, and it'll help a lot of people for sure. Okay.
Thank you, Shaq. That was great fun.
No problem, Dr. Verny. Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. Hey, I really appreciate it.
Take care. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, you as well. Take care now.
Bye bye.